I was able to find a lot of black morels up in the mountains, which was good because that's been a challenge for me in the past.
Okay, we need to talk about this. You're the first person that I've ever heard talk about mountain morels, not in Burns.
I've been playing around for a couple years now with aging, whether it's, low fat content meats, ungulates, elk, antelope, deer. And I think I've really come across something that combines dry and wet aging.
And like half an hour later, they're like crawling in the ground, like, this is the best dopamine high I've ever had. Just like picking strawberries, wild strawberries. All right, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Chef Will's back, second debut.
Yeah.
I think it was around the same time last year when we did our 5-man podcast with Shay, Tyler, you, and Lindy and me.
That was fun.
That was a super fun one. And today we got a new guest, Spencer Freehling, right? I said it right?
Yep, you got it.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No, totally. I mean, you and me met over the summer finally after being Instagram buddies for a while and connected right away over some degenerate chanterelle foraging,
The internet is a crazy place.
Yeah, totally. And you told me some stuff where I'm like, I need to get Spencer on the podcast. Some mushroom stuff we'll get into in a bit here. But first, do you guys want to give a quick, just like brief intro of who you are? New listeners that might not have heard the episode from before, Chef Will.
Absolutely. My name is Will Morton. Yes, Poldi. I am a chef. I am a small business owner here in the Gallatin Valley. I have a production kitchen in Four Corners where we manufacture a few types of barbecue sauce, specialize in probiotic hot sauces. So we ferment chilies from around the state, turn them into some pretty incredible hot sauces.
The best hot sauces.
Yeah.
Mind you.
Super mellow flavor. Super mellow heat, very hardcore chili flavor. My business is called Willie Mo's. Check us out. WillieMo's.com, and we do all sorts of cool stuff, barbecue, catering. We serve lunch every Friday. Check the website, that is, because some Fridays we don't, but majority of Fridays we serve lunch from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., and we have the cheapest pulled pork sandwich in Bozeman. It's a combo meal for $11, and with that combo meal, you get a bag of chips, your choice of soda, or a bottle of water for a whopping $11. And
it's incredible.
Yeah.
I've had it.
Traditional Eastern North Carolina style pulled pork barbecue, which is a vinegar base, super tasty.
Really good stuff.
And
you went to school in France?
Studied food in France in my late teens, and just kind of jumped right into it after that, working in restaurants all over the country. Specializing more in European refined cuisine, and I don't do much of that anymore except for the clients at the infamous Yellowstone Club and Spanish Peaks, and that's about to start here in another about week and a half. I hit the races with the skiers coming in for Christmas and New Year's break.
Hungry mouth to feed.
Hungry mouths, very demanding, but it's rewarding too. And they're actually some really good people up there.
Plus, you have a lot of foraging experience. You've foraged for many years. You've done like whole commercial sale of morels and whatnot, right?
Sure. I've been at this. I can remember as a child looking around the backyard in Connecticut, as my mom would point out these really funky-looking brain-style mushrooms coming out of the ground, a.k.a. the morel. And from there, it just started looking everywhere. And then I'd go to the woods, and then I'd start introducing myself to new mushrooms. And it went on and on and on, and then foraging for other edibles, from watercress to wild asparagus, field cress. I could go on and on. But foraging is such a reward. It's almost like being a child and hunting for Easter eggs, or looking for your mom's secret candy stash, as my mom always had one somewhere, and she'd always move it because she knew I was looking for it.
It is literally like the treasure hunt that will never leave you, from whether you're a child or an adult. Foraging will get you out there, and and let you discover some new goodies every
There's
year.
lots of tricks to it.
Yeah.
I remember I was listening to one of your podcasts where you had the head of the Colorado mycology on, and I downloaded the website, would follow the moisture contents of the soil.
Yeah.
I mean, this really is in the internet age, foraging has really become very interesting to me because you can research so much. There's so much more information than there was in, say, the 90s when I was just getting into this.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, it's been a big boom, I would say, the last 10 years or so. And it's still, though, something very novel,
Sure.
I like foraging. One reason I like to focus on it so much is because, like, my mission with all my content is to help people become more resilient through food, being, more resilient, self-sufficient. And I think foraging just has lower barriers of entry than like hunting and whatnot. But there's still that, that constant fear of eating the wrong thing. And I think that's why it's been, or why it hasn't had this renaissance yet. I think it's going to have an even bigger renaissance than, than the claim to fame it has been having the last 10 years or so. I think it's going to eventually, I'm hoping we'll have like foraging be something that everyone at least knows about, and that everyone knows a few species to forage for, just like their grandparents did. Like it's one of those skills like canning and whatnot that used to be with us up until like 150 years ago, and then there was no need anymore for any of that because of so much food convenience.
Sure.
So I'm hoping that one day everyone will at least know one species to forage for.
Well, hopefully everybody one day doesn't try to go to my mushroom spots like they do.
Well,
I think there's no avoiding that these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, this year especially was like the first year I really noticed, like, I don't know if I've noticed other people in the woods and like thought like, oh, there might be other people who are picking, but this year I ran into a lot of people that were heads down, kind of tripping over their feet in the woods. It's really become, I do agree with you, Poldi. I think it's become really popular.
Well, here's the one thing I have seen, at least I've noticed this pattern in Wisconsin, that the spots where a lot of people forage for morels, I find the most morels. And my theory is that they're out there collecting, spreading those spores around, helping them grow. So, but Spencer, introduce yourself quick too.
My name is Spencer Freehling. I'm local here in Bozeman. I'm a photographer by trade and have been for, I think 3 years now. It's been my sole occupation.
Really good photographer.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It started off in the outdoor space, doing a lot of hunting and fishing photography. And from there, it's just expanded into other things, music, just all kinds of stuff. I'm super lucky to get to meet a bunch of people and, like yourselves, and just putting yourself out on the internet. You never know really who you're going to meet, which is so cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, just everything outdoors. I love to hunt, fish, foraging, obviously, and trapping, dinosaur bone digging, rock hounding, like just
this
get
guy
me outside.
finds dinosaur bones all the time.
I can't take the credit for this.
Crazy.
My girlfriend is
She's
the
an
wizard.
archaeologist, right?
Yeah.
She's self-proclaimed, probably, but yeah, for sure. Now she deserves the credit for that one. But
didn't you guys find like a triceratops head or something?
we didn't.
No.
The pastor's son at her church did.
Yeah.
So cool.
Well, I didn't know.
They're always digging something up.
But Montana's super rich in dinosaur bones.
Yeah.
I guess
Well, the Hell Creek Formation, from Jordan all the way into North Dakota, there's just this big deposit of all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Which that's super new to me.
Yeah.
I'm foraging for them, but I can't eat them.
Make a bone broth out of those.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Yeah, no kidding.
Might have to add some aromatics.
Yeah.
Clay.
Wash off some sand.
Yeah, in a nutshell, I mean, just anything outside where I'm continually learning. I think that's what is so intriguing to foraging, for me, is each year, each season, it's like challenging yourself to get a new, just like, watercress you mentioned, or, you kind of pick something to focus on. You're never there's just never-ending learning.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to keep going, like seaweeds. I got into
Yeah.
seaweeds.
Did
when
ya?
Yeah, when I was like, I was living on Long Island Sound in Connecticut, and I was just like, wow, look at all these seaweeds. I wonder if you can eat them. Sure enough, you can eat them.
Well,
Some
we
of them
just
are
learned
really
about
good.
that in this year we went to Ireland. I don't think we haven't talked about this in the podcast much, but we took a whole seaweed foraging tour
Oh, wow.
on the coast,
Awesome.
and it was so interesting. Like,
That's really cool.
They
Mine-
all have totally different flavors. Like,
Textures.
it's
yeah,
crazy.
and mind blowing how much of the seaweed around us was edible. Like every single seaweed you saw was an edible species, and one of them was the Carrageenan, I think it was called. That they actually make that the Carrageenan gum, the food additive out
okay.
of that you
Sure.
see in a lot of food. And then one of them was like straight up spaghetti, like seaweed spaghetti,
Mhm.
texture wise, like noodles.
But with
And,
really good flavor.
yeah,
Yeah.
really
Yes,
good flavor.
With that bullwhip kelp.
Oh, I love bullwhip kelp.
Yeah.
The tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super good stuff. So that was interesting. Just learning about the coastal side of foraging. I want to really go like toward Pacific Coast, Washington, and kind of just bring a cooler and fill the cooler with crabs and
Yeah.
mussels and seaweed and bring it home. I don't know if it would stay good for that long for
It
that
would.
drive.
You'll be all right.
Yeah, it'd probably be all
Got a
right.
lot of salt on it.
Yeah. But I figured we could well, Spencer, one more thing. Where can people find you? Let's say that right away. Plug your stuff real quick.
I am solely on Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm an OG Instagrammer.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else. It's s.freehling on Instagram.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll put all the links in the description. So if you want to check out more
Thanks for the
Spencer's-
shameless plug.
Yeah, no problem.
what we
I mean, you
do.
guys do great stuff. So
Thank you.
both of you. So I figured I wanted to start this out with a study I just learned about the other day, and this new study called the Brain and Body Study, and it's basically telling us that video games, believe it or not, it's a weird thing to bring up, right? Can can boost our brain's cognitive function, enhancing cognitive skills like memory, attention, you name it. So video gaming. And in this article from medicalexpress.com, they said that, quote, the study spearheaded by Western celebrated neuroscientist Adrian Owen showed that among approximately 1,000 people who finished all the tasks that they were given, playing video games had a positive effect on an individual's cognition, but did not seem to affect their mental health. On the other hand, exercising more than 150 minutes per week, in accordance with the World Health Organization's guidelines, was seen to improve mental health well-being, but have no effect on cognition. So basically what they found here in this study is that gaming improves the cognition and exercising the mental health. So I think that's, all fascinating and good. Like I game a little bit here. I thought that was pretty cool. But the first thing when I read that came to my mind was like, mofos, how about you go hunting, fishing, and foraging? Like the ancestral gaming, right? Like those are like the activities that gaming is replacing these days. And those are the activities that have been sharpening human cognitive skills for millennia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus, you also get the mental health well-being because you're doing exercise. So you're getting both those things, both those benefits in one go, whereas gaming just gives you according to this study, the cognitive boost.
Until they make a foraging video game.
Yeah. But the foraging
Probably already exists.
I might buy it.
Yeah.
I might be better at it.
Oh, you're a pretty good forager.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just thought that was funny because I'm like, in my head, I was just like, well, I'd be curious if they did a study in foraging, hunting, fishing, similar thing, like what they would find in terms of boosting cognition, boosting mental health, because I mean, yeah, that's there's so much pattern recognition in foraging, right? Quick decision making in hunting, like all this cognitive ability stuff that I thought, people need to go back and try that again. And because they were kind of promoting gaming as like, oh, look at this study.
It's
You
the
should
new
all be,
cure-all.
yeah, you should all be
Right.
gaming. You'll get more brain power.
Yeah. Well, I mean, promote it because that means there's less people in Chef Will's spots.
Yeah.
Just stay home, play your video games. No, and to get what you're saying, it is pretty amazing how many little tiny decisions you do make when you're out. And I bet it is.
Yeah.
Very good for your cognitive function.
I'm sure. Like just alone the pattern recognition. Like, when you're like foraging and you're looking for morels and like your brain's doing so much while you're scanning the area. Like, so it's just so incredible how the brain's like immediately, basically, what would you say? Like cutting out all these species around you of plants and other things in the woods that you're not looking for. But then like that one morel
And then you
stands
get
out.
the boost of, what would it be? Probably serotonin as soon as you find it.
Dopamine.
Dopamine.
Freaking dopamine in
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Dopamine as soon as you find it. And it's like, woohoo,
Yeah, the first time I brought my two friends, Spencer and Kyle, up to Highlight to pick some strawberries. And they're like, gym bros, like never gone
Super
foraging
gym
ever.
bros.
And like half an hour later, they're like crawling on the ground, like, this is the best dopamine high I've ever had. Just like picking strawberries, wild strawberries. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys don't think I'm wrong with thinking that hunting, fishing,
No.
foraging is going to probably give you similar benefits.
Mhm.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
If it makes me dumber, I'm going to keep doing it.
I guess
But,
it depends
yeah.
on how you approach fishing, right? If you're just drinking beer, maybe that's not the
Yeah, right.
best way to boost your
But
guys.
at least you're going outside.
Yeah. Man, yeah. So I figured that'd be a fun way to start. But we're getting closer to the end of the year now, end of 2024. Crazy how this year flew by. But I figured it would be fun to just kind of do a little recap on how the foraging season was for all of us. Maybe I know you guys are really into mushrooms, foraging mushrooms. So how was your season? Anything memorable this year?
I think you asked that. I thought about this earlier. And last year I would tell you the porcinis, but that wasn't great. My river bottom morel year was spectacular this year.
Yeah.
Multiple flushes. Funny enough, I found one spot this year that I'd never been to, and how I found it was just looking for the things that we like to look for: a lot of deadfall, a lot of thick cover. And I looked down and I kept finding little tubes where someone had already been through there about a week before I had. But I stayed in that one spot for close to 2 hours, filling up 2 baskets full of morels. And then I always watch the weather, and then it rained like a day later. I went back about 5 days later. Again, I filled up and filled up. So I think my highlights and, my best memory for this past season was really the river bottoms. I normally am on the Yellowstone, but the Jefferson and the Gallatin this year were super great to me. And the Yellowstone, after that flood, 2 years ago?
I think so.
Basically, from my research, kind of moves spores around and messes up the deadfall, the leaf litter, the host, and it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years for them to start to come back.
Interesting. So the whole microclimates are messed up after a flood.
Exactly.
Like that.
And this was a catastrophic flood.
Yeah, this was insane.
So it was not just the water came up for, a half a day and went down. This water was up for multiple days.
Bridges were going down in Yellowstone, like houses, were getting flushed into the river.
Last year I didn't find one. On 4 different trips, 4 different times, I would have found some. And this past season, the Yellowstone I hunted, I also turkey hunted, so I probably hunted it 4 times, and not nearly as productive as the Gallatin and the Jefferson. But they're coming back there. I'm convinced that they'll be back. But I would say, if we're talking mushrooms now, instead of foraging other things, my spring season was great. I had a really busy work schedule this summer, so I did get out for chanterelles. They were great, but I found a lot of people in the woods this year and a lot of clipped mushrooms. And I just don't think the moisture in our region here and the Bozeman Valley, up to the Crazies where I go, we just didn't have consistent moisture, and I think that played a big role in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I personally thought it was a pretty good chanterelle year this year. at least from what I had seen in the past. But
Mhm.
I'm pretty new to the area still. At least, and I was only checking one spot, consistently, but at the same time, the berries were also. I thought the berries this year were insane.
Berries were crazy.
Unbelievable
Yeah.
berries.
It's been quite a few years since I can remember a berry year like this one. Maybe
Yeah.
3, maybe even 4,
Yeah.
Mhm.
where it was like,
Well, because I came in 2021, and since then this is the first time I've seen it like it. So maybe like 2020 was like that, but and it is boom and bust cycles, right? That's
Sure.
like what you get, which is really cool. But so I kind of looked at the chanterelles and finding a lot of those this year, and then the berries, and I was like thinking to myself, maybe it's connected, And I have heard now that if it's a really good berry year, it's an indicator that it's going to be a really harsh winter. And I'm curious to see if that's true.
It
Like,
was 52 degrees today.
yeah,
Yeah.
not too harsh yet. But
we also got some late dry heat,
Yeah.
or I guess early dry heat.
Hmm.
I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I know all of our wheels were probably just spinning hard. Our gears were cranking. We're like, why is it doing this?
Yeah. yeah, and you had a good mushroom foraging season this year, right?
Yeah, it went really well. My river bottom season didn't go very well. I'm glad you had a good one, but I was able to find a lot of black morels up in the mountains, which was
Yeah.
good because that's been a challenge for me in the past.
Okay, we need to talk about this. You're the first person that I've ever heard talk about mountain morels, not in burns. So you're finding morels in the mountains outside of burns. You're not looking to river bottoms for the blondies and grays. You're finding black mountain morels. That's special. Like, spill the beans, Spencer.
Yeah, I
Tell
can,
us,
I can
how do we-
spill this much of the beans.
Yeah, but what you have figured out so far, if you're willing to share it. I'd love to
I
know.
have some things I believe I can share without letting it all loose. But finding black morels in coniferous, like mixed coniferous forest, has been a huge challenge for me ever since I started mushroom hunting. I guess I can back up, and the first day that I ever went like foraging was with my cousin in Colorado, and we went out one day and just picked a bunch of blondes, tons of oysters, and I was like, yeah, this is something that I want to do. And then the next day he's like, well, do you want to go again? Like, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, yeah, I'm there.
Yeah.
He's like, we should go up in the mountains and look for black morels. And I'm like, just intrigued. And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we go and we're looking and looking. He's like, I've been here, 10 times. And this one guy always finds them and I never find them. And ever since then, it was just like, there's a little bit of a mystique with them in the back of my head. And then when I found my first black morels out here, it made that guy really jealous.
Yeah.
And then it made me like want to pursue it even more. I'm like, I had a great season. And I guess would I start with this?
So these are, I'm assuming it's a different species because you get different black morel species as burns progress.
Mm.
But yeah, it's a type of black morel. It looks like a burn morel, the ones you showed me in the picture at least.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ones that I'll come across at different elevations. And even different slopes. Maybe they just appear different because they're getting different amounts of light, but I'll find these like little gray ones that never get very big, and they're always kind of skinny and tall. They're not, and these blacker ones are like really dark on the edge ridges,
more like
kind of golden as you get into
Yeah.
and they look more like a river bottom, but they're generally pretty put together. They're pretty
firm.
No, yeah, pretty firm. That you find, river bottoms, and sometimes they look like they've gone through
Real
a little
quick.
stress. Yeah,
They've been
crumble.
in a river bottom.
Yeah.
but yeah, I think chasing elevation lines with black morels is where I really started to figure something out. Was kind of starting off on those south slopes when the snow melts, chasing them down, going from a higher elevation, chasing them downhill, and then up a north or a west slope. You can just, once you find a few early, you can chase a fruiting pattern up a mountain for a week and a half.
So you're early. You're like June.
Yeah.
Bring that mic a bit closer so we can hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say June.
Yeah.
Better.
June is kind of when you start.
Yeah. Yep. Right around June. And I think started finding them by accident. I was looking for Verpa bohemicas, and I would just go places where snow was melting, like way earlier than I should have been out there. And instead of finding Verpas, I found Gyromitra esculentas.
It's one of the false morels.
Right. There's the Gyromitra montanas, which I've been looking for years and never found any of those, which are maybe edible. I'm not sure. I know a few people that eat them, but
rocket fuel in them.
Yeah,
that's what people
like
say.
I
don't eat them.
I was looking for Verpas, and then I found a bunch of Gyromitras, and then I would go back to those same areas where Gyromitras were fruiting heavy, and in place of those Gyromitras would be black morels. So they must like something similar.
Habitat.
Yeah, they like, nothing really, not a lot of big broken tree, like huge broken like logs, but sticks, like small matter that's broken on the ground.
And you were talking about like
that.
Some sort of saplings?
Yeah, new growth.
New growth.
I think that's just common with mixed conifers, that there's always
disturbance,
different age classes.
And are they mostly
probably some disturbance
in like open spots or more into thicker woods?
That depends on where that particular fruiting is happening. If you're what slope you're on. I found them on south slopes in rock. Like,
really?
Yeah, like rocky, shaly stuff where you never would expect a mushroom to grow. And that surprised me.
Yeah.
It just furthered my knowledge. And then
that's super interesting.
I found them in aspen groves and like boggy places where I've found moose sheds in the past, and go looking for moose sheds. And I'm like, there's more black morels. Like, I can't get away from the things.
They won't
I've
leave
never
you alone.
come across one outside of a burn.
They're pretty hidey.
Yeah.
You definitely, it takes a little bit of visual training like any mushroom does.
Right. And I was never paying attention to them, in the mountains.
Yeah, I've never looked for them.
If you stop and catch your breath, I think me being fat helps. Because I'm like, there's been so many times where like my hands are on my knees and I'm gasping for air, and I look down on the trail in front of me, and there's like, a flush of like 8 to a dozen. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
That's the big secret. I love it.
Gain some weight, Poldi.
Yeah.
Muscle. No, I slimmed down so I can be more of a mountain goat. But this year was my worst cardio in the mountains for hunting season for sure. I got to get back in that mountain tough grind.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Chef Will, have you heard of these?
I found my first ones this year with chanterelle hunting.
Really?
And this is how it basically what it's a trained, you're looking, so normally when I'm looking for chanterelles, I'm looking for chanterelles or porcinis, maybe some other species, but it's not like I'm on the river bottom looking for that coral, brainy looking mushroom. And I ran across a father and son in the woods, and I could tell that they were foraging. Well, they had a mushroom bag, and as I said hi to them, I glanced at the bag, and it was full of black morels.
Oh my God.
And I said, where did you find those? Are burn up here? He's like, no, these are, he had a word for them. I'm sure it was the Latin. And I said, oh, really? He's like, yeah, they're all over the place this year. And so later that day, I'm walking through the woods and I came across, maybe 5 or 6 of them in one little area. I was pretty impressed. I've never found them before. I've picked many burn morels. Honestly, culinary wise, they're not my favorite.
The burn morels?
Yeah, they're just they're very dirty. They're hard to clean, and I don't think they have that amazing nutty, earthy flavor that a blonde morel has.
Have you tried Did you try the blacks next to the blondes at all?
I did, and they were much better than a burn morel, but they were smaller. And I didn't really get enough. You cook a few down, they disappear and everything really quick. But there was definitely a cleaner flavor than what I typically would find in a burn morel. I always think burn morels are very gritty and to some extent very smoky tasting.
Yeah, that's true. That ashy flavor.
Yeah,
you had a good way to clean them though. When I got my first batch when I moved to Montana, you told me to let them dry in an air compressor.
Sure. I hit them with, I always hit them with a low poundage of air in my air compressor when I get out of the field, and then I'll let them dry, and I'll put them in between two screens and air compress them again so they won't blow all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but air compressor is you got to watch how much poundage of air you're putting on them because they will rip holes and stuff. But all my mushrooms, whether they're oysters or chanterelles, I always take an air compressor just to get the dirt and pine needles off. It works really good.
It's super
Yeah.
smart.
Smart.
Your mushrooms ever touch water, tap water?
Yes, they do, especially if this year a lot of chanterelles did because I shouldn't say tap water because at the kitchen I put a lot of money into a water filtration neutralizer, so they're getting pretty clean water. But a lot of really,
Can I come get my water there?
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
seriously.
Fill up
very
some
good
jugs.
drinking water. It's very. This year I had a lot of mushroom chanterelles that were dry,
Yeah.
like past their prime. So I've done this before. Is I'll take them and run them through a big sink of water with a colander underneath them. This is after I air compress them and shake them dry. Put them in plastic bins with some terry cloth underneath them, and then put them in the walk-in cooler. I have a walk-in cooler. I'm kind of cheating. I have big 4 fans in there blowing on them. So I create kind of a mushroom environment in my commercial kitchen with the walk-in. But I do, some mushrooms I won't get wet. Oyster mushrooms I don't like to get wet. They absorb too much. But chanterelle comes back pretty quickly. And I also found that I can increase the shelf life of a fresh chanterelle. I think I clocked close to 35 days on one batch.
Whoa.
Whoa, how?
I use plastic Cambrio hotel pans, which is basically like a sheet pan with a 3-inch wall. Once I get them dry with that terry cloth, I'll take craft bags, your paper shopping bag, and I'll put them a layer on the bottom of the pan. I'll put the chanterelles down, and then I'll put a layer of paper on top, and then I'll plastic wrap them tight and put them in the bottom shelves out of the doorway, away from the doorway, or just where they're going to consistently keep the same temperature. And that'll only work. I have found the longer I'll go through them every week and pick ones out that I think are going south and use them. But that really works with like a semi-mature chanterelle. Not so good with like that full, open trumpet chanterelle that's maybe 2 inches in radius diameter, but like the buttons or like just past button stage, thicker ones, they can last at least a month in your fridge.
That's awesome to know. I love how like those are tips like I feel like I often only hear you talk about because you're so like in the kitchen experimenting.
Yeah, it is an experiment.
With
Cool.
stuff,
Yep. Absolutely.
You got these crazy vinegars you sell that are like fermenting and good stuff.
Yeah, the vinegar thing is it's quite an ongoing process of experimentation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love the
that.
vinegars. They're
That's
so
a great
good.
tip. We'll have to try that with the chanterelles. I mean, usually I just dehydrate mine and then reconstitute them. And I like that. I know your palate is very sensitive and fine-tuned. So I've heard people say that if you reconstitute them, they lose a lot of flavor. And I think there might be something to that.
There's a lot of truth to that in the chanterelle, but I can also tell you with a porcini, the flavor increases. And I even think with morels, especially blondes, if you dry them really, do it the right way, nice and slow, morels hold an amazing flavor when they're dry.
So when you say nice and slow, is it all sun-dried when you do it?
I'm using those fancy ovens in my kitchen.
Yeah.
I invested in, I'd like to give a shout out to Rational, great company. Anyhow, Rational is a German company, and they're making a really cutting culinary art machine now that's a combi therm. You can steam, smoke, also dehydrate. I've made jerky, but the mushroom setting, I'm running at 114 degrees for about 18 hours.
Okay. So that can be done in a dehydrator too.
Same way.
But I know you like to do it in the sun. You've done it too, right?
I've done it in the sun, but I'll
sun-dried.
tell you the problem with the sun. The wind blows in Montana.
Yeah.
When you put them all out in the sun, you go run your errands and spend your day out in the field playing and come home and your mushrooms are all over your porch covered in dog hair, dirt, and whatever else roams outside here.
Plus, didn't you have your dog eat a bunch or something like that?
My dogs have eaten a bunch of my mushrooms in the past.
You
Yeah.
can take 2 screen doors and screw them together.
That's a brilliant idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'll work.
I'm ingenious.
Yeah. No,
Sew them up for us.
yeah. Separate them with a hinge.
Spencer, how did your chanterelle season go?
It went good. Gave a lot of chanterelles away. I just like to go pick them. They're not necessarily my favorite.
Pick
to
them
eat.
all.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it went well. I think when you and I was going back through my journal before I came on to remind myself of what my season looked like, and I think we picked 6 pounds that day, and
Wow.
we were only there for
2 hours.
a
so
couple
2.5.
hours. So,
Wow.
and in that same spot, I picked 12 pounds.
Yeah, I was
like
about,
the
I
week
remember that.
prior.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it went good. It was like going in for full days and just hauling out, 15 to 20 pounds at a time. And then it became, I'm like, I don't have any freezer space anymore.
Yeah.
So,
And you always like to just freeze your chanterelles.
yeah, my dehydrator is not big enough to handle all of that. I need to invest in a bigger, badder dehydrator.
Next year, you come to Willie Moe's.
Yeah.
Start renting out your fancy machine to us.
You just drop them off.
Oh yeah. No, it went good. And my porcini season, I don't know how yours have been in the past couple years, but I'm just getting my butt kicked.
Yeah, this year I had one good day, and my other spots were just dry. But last year, I'm not going to lie, had to be close to 40 pounds, and I still have bags full of them dried. I like the small porcinis slice, and I like to grill them, but I really, the versatility as a chef with dried porcinis, and there are many different species that I pick here too, but everything from grinding them in a spice mill and making a powder for a crust for a steak, or to thicken a sauce. I played with pickling this year. I pickled a bunch of mushrooms. That was really fun. Charcuterie board or garnish, a grilled steak with. But porcinis were hard to find this year. But I must admit, I also didn't get in the car and drive over to the. Could we give locations? It's a big location. Crazy Mountains.
It's up to you.
I find that the Crazy Mountains I've had. Last year, I was pulling 5-gallon buckets out, but I didn't go there this year, so I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I know this year we got skunked.
Yeah, we found a few like patches that had a good amount in, but they were all buggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even the prime
Even the
looking,
teeny tiny.
Yeah.
they
were-
looked so perfect from the outside. You cut them open, just buggy.
I've had
Yeah.
the same problems.
Yeah.
Little buttons. They're
Mhm.
barely coming up out of the duff and they're bugged out.
Yeah. The bugs know it's
Yeah.
good.
I
Yep.
think that has something to do with the consistency of moisture that we had this
Yeah.
year. It was
Mhm.
all one, and then dry, hot, all one, hot, dry. It just
Yeah.
it wasn't like 2 years ago where it would rain every 2 or 3 days.
Which that's like the ideal for most mushrooms.
Mhm.
Consistent rainfall, not too much, not too little. The soil moisture stays pretty consistent, and then you have nice temperatures that aren't too extreme.
Mm.
That's
Mhm.
what they like.
Yeah. It's funny too with chanterelles. I feel like I start to almost curse the rain a little bit at like when the season's
Sure.
coming to a close, and it seems like the rain just ruins.
Fear the mold.
Yeah, it just
Mhm.
ruins them. You're like, would you just
That's
stop
true.
raining for like a week? Let me pick these.
Do you guys pick the chanterelles that are a little moldy?
A little bit won't bother me.
Yeah,
Really?
I'm with him. I'm
Yeah.
like, little
I'll
dirt
cook them
don't
right
hurt
away.
kind of
I
thing.
won't dry them. I won't dry the moldy ones.
But not like the black, sometimes to get the like
It
greenish
looks like
black.
mildew. It's like
yeah.
little black spots on.
Yeah, so you'll eat those
I'll eat
sometimes.
those.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Mm.
Interesting. I always try to cut around that, but might be something to try.
Yeah.
Build up some.
Good gut health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because a lot of people say that you should not freeze chanterelles because it makes them lose their flavor or whatever. But you've said you've never really.
That's
What's
pretty
your
much all
like
I've done.
process?
You could cook them first too, like a light saute.
I think that's what you do, right?
Yeah, I just sweat them out basically,
Sure.
and once they're released a lot of moisture, it's like a light salt, and then I just let them cool down and wrap them up.
It seems
in the freezer.
efficient because if you have 20 pounds of chanterelles, it's a lot of processing.
It is, yeah.
You know, especially if you're trying to dehydrate them and
Yeah.
clean them up, and then
And I did meet a guy in one of my mushroom spots this year. We actually ended up being pretty good buddies.
nice.
And
That's cool.
it's cool. Sometimes you see somebody in your spot and you're like,
We saw a guy
who's this asshole?
hunting chanterelles.
And you end up being buddies, yeah.
Hold your thought. 3 times
Yeah.
in random spots, we saw the same guy
Really?
in the middle of the woods with no one else foraging.
He's the same guy that was in my spot, I'm guessing.
Probably.
Maybe it's my buddy.
It might be.
Yeah.
But it's just like, what are the chances
He's
that
going to be on the pod next.
in the
It's
mon-
funny, we keep saying my spot. You're like,
Yeah.
my spot. It's like, it's really not our spot for
It's-
all the
it's-
listeners out there. It's public land.
yeah.
It's anybody's spot.
But
It's
it's mine.
intellectual property that you've earned with blood and sweat.
Yeah.
This is my Onyx pin.
But you were saying, yeah, you met
yeah.
the buddy.
Run into this guy, and he just had one of those baskets just full of chanterelles, and we got to talking, and he's like, "How serious are you about mushroom hunting?" I'm like, "Well, I have a mushroom tattooed on my arm." That's for, and he unzips his shirt, and he had every single species of mushroom
I know this
tattooed.
guy.
Oh.
I know
Joe,
him.
you know Joe?
I know him.
Yeah,
He came
he's
to
got
the
it.
farmer's market once.
So that's what he told me to do with my chanterelles, because I was like, I'm out of room. I'm like, you can have all the stuff I picked today. He's like, go to the farmer's market tomorrow and pawn it off for fresh vegetables and pork. Well, I gave it a shot, and I came out on top. So I
Wow.
just started trading at the farmer's market, and
That's pretty cool.
big fan.
I haven't done that yet. That's a good trick.
When you run out of space and friends
Yeah.
to give them to,
Bring it to the
go to
farmer's,
the farmer's
market.
market.
You can also, instead of trading it, you can also take a really easy class online and get a license to sell them. It's super easy. They
Yeah.
make you take a test at
But
the
isn't
end
it,
of the
didn't you
class.
say you stopped it because it's like a $500 permit or something like that?
Well, it's not only that, you better have it in your business insurance policy just in case. So
yeah.
that was the most expensive thing is not the certification and the class, it's the insurance policy if you get somebody sick.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I wouldn't want to mess with that.
I'd rather
I'll get my
trade.
friend sick. You know?
Yeah, right.
I don't like to
Yeah.
share my mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
And I didn't hear anybody bring this up yet, but last year for me, one of my favorite eating mushrooms, the hedgehog.
Oh,
I
yeah.
even
Mhm.
have developed a special container to pick them and put them in because they're so fragile. But I mean, hedgehogs this year were non-existent. I didn't find.
We found one.
I found 2 patches, maybe a pound or pound and a half. But the places where last year I was making multiple trips back to the car, not a one.
Yeah. It's interesting how all that works. I need to really get like a mycologist on.
I think it's moisture.
Yeah,
I think it's all moisture.
But like one year you'll have species that'll be popping, and then another species won't be popping.
They're
Yeah.
just
and, like,
Goldilocks.
Yeah.
or
So
maybe
it's
it's
gotta be
just
just
like
right.
our own perception because we're like, once we see one popping, that's the one we're going to be picking
Yeah.
for most of the season.
So you're saying this is your favorite edible mushroom? One of your favorites, you said.
Hedgehogs.
The bluet, the hedgehog, and the black trumpet, the black chanterelle.
Mm.
Those are your
Those
top
are
3.
my favorite. Hedgehog's way up there.
Hedgehogs definitely up there for me.
Super
I've
good.
never had one.
Really?
Oh, wow.
They're
I've found 'em,
fantastic.
and I just
Dude, they
leave
are
'em.
better than chanterelles
Mhm.
Yeah.
for sure.
Mhm.
And
I'll be keeping them from
they're
here on
like
out.
they're such a great mushroom because great beginner mushroom because they do not have any lookalikes.
That's a fact.
Yeah, and they're like their bugs don't eat them,
Yeah.
so like they're so good.
Mhm.
Yeah, and they look cool. Out here, you get the big ones.
Yeah.
Which I guess in some other states they're little dinks, little tiny ones.
Hmm.
But yeah, next year I got some marks.
Okay.
We'll go to see. Hope
Yeah,
maybe
If they
next
come
year.
back.
That is the nice thing about expanding your foraging. Just like the amount of species that
Your list.
is because your list. Everyone knows what a morel looks like and oysters, and when those spots start to get hit, you can retreat to the woods and go pick hawkswings and hedgehogs and stuff that really nobody's going after.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Especially in the plant realm,
Sure.
like we talked about foraging being popular again, but the plants, I feel like still there's so many species. That are
Mushroom hunters are just trudging over mustard.
Yeah. Yeah. Or other pineapple weed, all
Uh-huh.
the other good stuff out there. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about it is that I'll always say this in the podcast, but like once you start foraging, there's so many rabbit holes that you'll
Yeah.
never be bored
Sure.
again. You'll never be bored again. There's so many you won't be able to learn them all in your lifespan. You know, you need buddies that'll gonna learn others and then teach you. So you can.
Yeah, I want to
learn
go find some
quickly.
dinosaur bones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
seriously.
want that bone broth.
Yeah.
We should.
Yum.
I had an idea.
Start
we
licking
should,
rocks. That's what I learned.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Don't do that. We
Yeah.
should develop a basket that's like a false foraging basket.
Tell me more.
It's got like dandelions on the top.
Oh, as a
So you
decoy.
remove the top so it looks like you're always foraging for something that's not actually in your basket.
So this idea probably springs from one of our morel hunts this year, where
yeah, I
we
like
were
an old lady.
hunting in a very
Hmm.
popular
Classic.
walking spot, and all of a sudden next to the trail we just find all these morels, and we start picking, and then this lady comes, and before we were looking for or before we found morels, we were picking dandelions.
Yeah.
So she's like,
I opened my basket and it's all just dandelions. And we're like, yeah, just dandelions.
we're
She's
just
like,
picking
oh,
dandelions,
okay.
making tea and
Uh-huh.
stuff, like, you know, underneath are all the morels. So it's a good decoy. Always
Yeah.
carry
Perfect.
some dandelion.
But
People
then
want to know
people-
where you are. Just go. I was on the state land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Which state? Land?
looking for dandelions.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
I like it.
No. So, Chef Will, you mentioned pickling.
Yes.
What process?
Never done it before. Then I had a couple days this year where I was really getting a lot of chanterelles, and I did some reading. I looked at some old books and learned that you want to have your buttons and your more, like I was saying before, not so full trumpeted chanterelles. I separated them all. Your thicker, meaty chanterelles, and I did a few different batches. I'm not a big oil fan. I don't like really a lot of grease. So I played with the idea of doing a batch in oil, but instead I decided to take a route to make I would call it a stock or a broth.
Okay.
And I would take clean water. You can use bottled water. You just don't want to use tap water. And really good rosé or Chardonnay wine, sulfite free, which is kind of hard these days.
Biodynamic.
Uh-huh.
Ideally, yeah.
And I would just 50-50, and that would be my start for my base. And then one batch, I basically added a little bit of, a little bit of vinegar too, champagne vinegar I would add to that base to give it that tang. One batch I did ginger. I made kind of like an Asian flair with ginger. Another batch I mocked like you would if you were to make a cornichon with tarragon and coriander and mustard seed. Those were probably my favorite. Hence, I don't have any more. I think I made 5 or 6 jars. They're already gone. But the ginger one I really liked. I was a little bummed that the ginger kind of took away the mushroom flavor. So you would eat it and it would be all like pickly flavor, ginger. But just as you were finishing that chew, you would get that little bit of chanterelle earthiness come through. But it was just something new I wanted to try.
Yeah.
Um,
I've only done the oil method. Like my Italian grandma showed me how she used to do it way back in the day. and
sure.
That was pretty good with chanterelles, but
But yeah, this, and I'm happy to share a recipe. I mean, it was really simple. It was just a 50-50, and you know, I
50 broth, 50 wine.
50 water, no 50% clean water, and then your other half is your wine. And I adjusted a little bit with a little bit of vinegar into each jar just to get the acidity level up high enough to be safe.
Yeah.
pH tested it, make sure I'm like not too high, not too low.
What's your ideal pH when you're doing that?
I think I'm about 1.8.
Oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
pretty acidic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's about right. But then you could really play with it. You know, I brought some snacks over tonight. I'm a big fan of the Sichuan peppercorn, and the green Sichuan has got a really cool flavor. So I did some with Sichuan peppercorn. It was very nice. But just kind of experimenting. Garlic. I did some with just garlic. That one was really good. I don't think I have any of those left either. It's kind of like, and I did them in small jars. I was kind of mad that I didn't spend more time making more because, you make something, and I'm the chef that as I make something, I sit there and write everything down. So you look at my recipe books, they're all handwritten, but you'll see a lot of scratch marks, a lot of cross outs, 1 cup, and then I'll put like 2.5 cups or, so I wish I would have made more of them. And I like to share them, my girlfriend's a very picky eater, so she won't touch them. But I wish I would have experimented a little bit more. Because you can infuse it's pickling, you can infuse all sorts of flavors into them.
Right. When you mentioned broth earlier, I was thinking maybe like a bone broth. I think you could add something like that in there?
Yeah, I think if you were to do a bone broth, I do a real quick can on these. I use my ovens. But you're going to want, if you start adding those protein matters, you're going to want to pressure can it and probably run it for a little bit longer.
Yeah, right.
The chanterelle, if you did that, you might run into a mush situation.
Yeah.
They might almost get overcooked. And before I stuffed my jars, I did the probably what you do is you just get a hot skillet going and no oil, just kind of get some of that moisture out of them, put a little salt in them.
Yeah.
And then I would pack my jars, brine them, cap them. I think I was using half-quart jars, I think. And I think I was doing 12 minutes hot process on them real quick.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I've never tried them with the pickling, with the acidity and vinegar, only the...
Now I'm wishing I would have brought some.
Yeah. What do you
Next
mean?
time.
Yeah, even if your girlfriend is picky, keep experimenting. You know who to call.
Yeah.
If you need to have someone eat it.
I pickled a lot this year.
Yeah.
I grew cucumbers this year, and I think I made close to 90 jars of bread and butter pickles
Whoa,
because I love
a lot. That's a lot of work.
Them. It is a lot of work,
but good.
It's worth it.
Something.
You don't have to buy any Christmas gifts this year.
That's right.
Yeah, between the vinegars, the pickles, and the mushrooms, right?
Yeah, you're good to go.
Always something. Well, you just mentioned wine. Before we forget, I brought some of my mead here.
Oh wow,
golden mead. And I know you got a sensitive palate, so hopefully you like it, Chef Will.
Cool.
I'm not very picky, but we made this in 2021 in Wisconsin. My buddies and I, shout out Caleb, shout out Dylan, we tapped birch trees.
Okay.
And got the sap, and we each filled like 5 gallons of carboys in the woods.
What time of year do you tap? Same like maple syrup?
April-ish. Yeah,
when they're taking up their water transposition.
Yep. And the birch have traditionally were used for mead by Scandinavian people, Northern European, and it's got the ones we sampled had a bit of a menthol flavor, which you don't really get in here, I don't think. But there's some good vitamins in there. There's not as much sugar as a maple. So we used just birch sap and honey to make this.
Wow.
Just did traditional, and then I moved here and I just had the carboy sitting in my parents' basement for 3 years.
Oh, wow.
And my mom kept refilling the what do you call it on top? For fermenting.
Airlock.
The airlock, thank you. So she just kept making sure that's full. And I really wasn't sure when we went there this summer if it, I thought it would be horrible. I was like, we can't drink this anymore. It's not safe. Or just like vinegar, Tried some of it and it tasted, I thought, awesome. So we bottled it, and I feel like surprisingly it fermented a little longer once we bottled it, even after 3 years, because it got more bubblier. So
some of them.
Yeah, if you don't want to try it, feel free. But we've drank many of these bottles.
We've had many.
We're
and
trying
it's been fine. We're not dead yet.
After he hypes it up like that, we're trying it.
Yeah, we've tried many bottles. And
there's a lot of carbonation in it.
There is, but that all came after, which surprised me. So I wonder if when I rebottled it, if I somehow introduced some wild yeast again. But I think it has a
Pour right over your electronics.
Yeah,
sure you.
Absolutely. Ooh, that looks good. I think it has a really pleasant, like it's dry. It's not overly sweet, which I like. I hate
Yeah, the super sweet.
sweet wines. So for people who don't know what mead is, it's a honey wine basically, or honey beer, whatever you want to call it. In this case, it's more like a beer because
Honey
it's got the
birch.
carbonation. But yeah, this is real traditional, super traditional, like just birch water and honey.
So did you introduce yeast to it after
I did.
when you mixed
yeah.
it?
13 pounds of local raw honey, organic honey that I got. So let me know, honest review here. What do you think? It's not sweet, but you can get a hint of honey in there.
Yeah, I get the honey for sure.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to see what his refined palate says about it.
Refined is better than
Mine
sensitive.
says yum.
Refined palate. I love it. I personally,
I'm trying to put a tag on what I'm tasting. I get the honey. I get the honey.
It's a bit bready in the aftertaste, I think.
It's bready. It's I get the honey.
Do you like it?
I don't understand it, but yes, I'm trying to understand it better. I think it's really good.
I agree.
That is such a good answer.
Almost has a quinine finish.
Quinine. What is
Quinine.
Quinine?
That's what they make tonic water out of.
Ah.
Mm.
Oh yeah. Okay. The anti-malaria malaria stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's got like a yeast bread finish kind
Yeah,
of.
the yeast is very strong in it.
Yeah, but
it's
which is surprising because, I mean, I can show you pictures. I can show you pictures of when we siphoned it. There was like no yeast left. So I think I might have introduced something afterwards, but it's definitely high in alcohol.
we're all gonna die.
Get a
It's
little
definitely
drunk
high in
together.
alcohol, and yeah, we've drank probably like 10 bottles now, and
We're still
multiple
kicking.
people. So
That's what's wrong with you.
Yes. We drink a lot of honey mead.
I personally am a big fan, obviously because I made it, but I'm definitely gonna try making more meat again after this, and just that's probably one of my favorite homemade brew things to do. You know, brew recipes. I
Yeah,
guess.
I've always wanted to figure out how to make wine, especially the choke cherry wine.
Oh,
Well, I got some of that, and
we
I don't
Poldi
follow recipes.
killed
that-
it.
I thought I did pretty good in that one.
That's
last year.
probably one of the best wines I've ever had. I'm not like a
Yeah, I'll bring that one on
sommelier,
next
but-
episode.
I'm
Nice.
gonna need that recipe. I've got a bunch
So
of choke
that's the
cherries in the
thing.
freezer.
So okay, last year I kind of followed a recipe, but that's the thing.
This is like
I
the
never
one
like
time he did it.
this
Follow.
year-
A little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, this year I'm really gonna stick with like measuring the alcohol content stuff. I've never really done that. I just always made just
Wing it.
how I think they would have made them 300 years ago. They didn't have all this technology, you know.
If you get drunk, you get drunk. That's how you measure it.
Yeah, exactly. But so Lindy actually took a recipe out of Danielle Pruitt's cookbook, or was it a different cookbook?
That was from the Tolkien.
Oh,
Lord of the
we have a Lord of the
Rings.
Rings
Oh,
cookbook.
yeah.
Yes.
So they had a mead.
Very official.
What was it called?
I don't remember. Mead Mule or something.
Mead Mule. So it was like a master.
Oh,
mule.
okay.
So it was
Oh.
ginger ale. We used Zevia, which doesn't have sugar, and mixed it with this and some mint and lime or something.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Wow.
So yeah. Well,
I'd love to get
there
into
you
that.
have it.
Mm-hmm.
Just fermenting anything. I'm gonna have to pick your brain, Chef Will, about
Absolutely.
vinegars have been,
Yeah.
you know,
The
Tell us a little bit
Tell-
about
yeah, so
Enlighten us.
I was working at a kitchen in Colorado, and I had a friend come through from France who I went to culinary school with, and he handed me something, and a little, almost looked like a Pyrex lab vial with a cork in it. And he handed it to me. He said, "This is a present from my mom, who I'd met when I was in France in school there. And this is a present from my mom." And then he reached in his pocket the other pocket, and he goes, and this is the other present. And I'm like, they look both the same to me. One's kind of reddish pink and the other one's kind of white. What the heck is it? It looks like spit.
Yeah.
And it was his mom's mom. Like, this goes back over 100 years. Their vinegar mother, their starter,
Wow.
their SCOBY, if you would. In vinegar, they call it the mother of vinegar. And it's present, if it's probably present in your cupboard at home. If you have a bottle of cider vinegar that's, over a year old, you'll start to see, hold it up to the light, you'll start to see some jello-y, slimy looking stuff. And that's basically your base. That's your activator. That's your yeast. That's your good bacteria. And you just need to feed it to keep it alive. Speaking of, I need to feed all mine. And how do you feed it? You just feed it with wine and a little piece of fruit or vegetable, whatever your base is. And so I took those two and have started multiple varieties. So I'll match the red wine vinegar starter. I would match with a cherry or a huckleberry or a red grape or a blood apple or anything, or a pomegranate, and I would introduce more wine, once again biodynamic wine, sulfite free, a big blob of the mother, which the mother continues to grow over the years. You get, like I have, and I'd love to share some with any of you guys. You get globs of the stuff. Some of it I'd throw away because it
grows prolifically.
It grows prolifically. And then basically the hardest thing with the vinegars is time. It takes a long time. You introduce, I'll go through, I just started a batch of Meyer lemon vinegar. The citrus season's just kind of beginning right now. And Meyer lemons are just starting to come in. So I took my starter, I'd say it would be about a quart of starter. I took 25 pounds of Meyer lemons, and I have these big Pyrex. They're about 5-gallon Pyrex. They use them for medical practice. They're. I need to get some more, but they've gotten so expensive. I put everything in there. I have a measurement for wine to fruit to mother. It's a very expensive hobby because if you buy, a good case of biodynamic wine is about $200.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you pour 6 bottles of it into a jug with a bunch of fruit and a starter and something goes wrong, it's garbage. I mean, it turns into gas, basically. But then you just watch it. You take pH, acidity testing. I do it every 2 weeks. Well, normally after the first 2 months, but most of the vinegars, fruit-based vinegars, are about 4 to 5 to 6 months. My vegetable vinegars, I have a poblano. I do a roasted poblano vinegar, which is awesome. That takes more like 7 to 8 months. Darkness, you want complete darkness. You want consistent temperature. There's so many variables in it. I actually do not have a process, what they call a process of authority for my vinegars, because the USDA, or actually the Food and Drug Administration, has implemented so many things into shelf stability. I could wholesale my vinegar if they were to keep it cold, but how many people go look for vinegar in the cold section?
Yeah.
So I do not wholesale my vinegar. I sell it direct to consumer because I do not have the paperwork on it, because they want me to cook it to 162 degrees, which kills it. Kills all the flavor.
Fermented, rich probiotic vinegar.
Sure,
is your goal.
But it's a time game. I've thrown a lot away. I've wasted a lot. 2 years ago, I made a batch of huckleberry vinegar, and I decided to take a shortcut and use a wine that had some nitrates in it. I threw away about $160 in huckleberries and about another $120 in wine. And I lost mother that I had to rebuild with. I make a flathead cherry vinegar that I had rebuild with the flathead mother with some huckleberries. So, and that took a year. So it's fun. I wish I can get the word out a little bit more about it, and people can order on my website and so forth. But a lot of people look at, for 5-ounce bottle of vinegar for $10, and they're like, what the fuck? I'm not paying $10. I can go to the store and get a jug of, balsamic for $4.
This stuff's way better though.
But
you can't compare it.
It's not the same.
It's got amazing flavor profile, and people are, what do I do with it? I tell people, you could elixirs for just put some in seltzer water, or you can. I even do a dessert where I make a gastrique with it and put it over ice cream, like a caramel sauce. There's lots of things. Finish a grilled chicken, but I have a tarragon vinegar I'm just about to bottle. That's amazing, just in a little bowl with some olive oil drizzled on top of your chicken as it comes off the grill, or your pheasant breast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just on steak is what I did with the ones you gave
Just
us.
another level of complexity to
Sure.
to something. That's awesome.
Yeah, try some of them.
I got to.
They're really good. Yeah.
Can't wait.
That's awesome. I want to get into the vinegar game. Maybe we get some mothers from him.
Get a crash course.
Yeah, try it out.
Come down to the kitchen and I will give you a crash course. It's really it's not that tough. It's time, temperature, pH, and knowing what to look for, because the vinegar tells you when it's done. It's kind of like, I've described it before to people, it's like ice fishing. You don't go out in the ice until it's thick enough to drill a hole in. Same thing with the vinegar. You don't harvest the vinegar until that SCOBY mother has reformed like a surface of thick ice. And that's when you pull it aside, run it through a cheesecloth, and bottle it.
So is that safety or flavor?
Flavor.
Okay.
The safety aspect of it is color. You're looking at color. So if your SCOBY is black, or in some cases like some orangey yellow colors, there's some types of mold out there you got to be really careful of.
I was about to say some other fungus that gets in there and produces maybe some chemicals that you don't want to ingest.
And I've also, it's really funny, I was selling it wholesale, dun dun dun. Someone turned me in. If you're out there, didn't stop me. I was wholesaling it here in Bozeman, and one of my vendors came to me and said, someone returned a bottle of this vinegar and said it was too strong. And I'm like, uh-oh. And it was a ramp and Szechuan vinegar.
Ooh.
Super tasty. And what had happened was I didn't fine strain it enough, so there was a lot of settle. So it kept fermenting somehow in the sealed jar. I don't know how it worked, but it turned into liquor. It was like
Boozy.
Possibly flammable. So hence why it was too strong.
Oh my God, that's funny.
But I've messed with vinegar for a long time. I don't have much more. I don't make a lot of more errors anymore because I know where to stop. I'm still trying to master a garlic vinegar. Garlic vinegar is very hard. I think it's a complexity of garlic and what's in it. I've tried adding sugar to it. I've tried adding different things to speed up the fermentation process. But garlic vinegar always comes out tasting like just dirty nastiness. It's just not a good flavor, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. I think it's cool that you're using like foraged ingredients, in that way. I usually just cook what I forage, but I don't use it. We've started to do some extracts and stuff like that.
But we're not terribly creative.
Yeah, we need to get more creative, experimental like that.
Infuse your mind and soul into it.
Yeah. Because it's like Lindy's brother has really picked up a hobby of like learning how to make good bartender drinks. Like,
he doesn't drink at all, but man, he loves making drinks.
Yeah, so I was like, hey,
He's good at it.
Probably really like foraging and turning, like making your own bitters out of foraged ingredients,
Sure.
like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot you can do with your foraged ingredients. So I'm curious, 2024 sounds like it went pretty well mushroom wise, or, at least for some species. Is there anything you guys are looking forward to learning next year that's not on your, that you're not super familiar with, that's maybe been on your list in the back of your head for a while, species wise, plants or mushrooms?
I need to get better at finding asparagus.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I
Look
love
what I have
asparagus.
written down there. Where did I put it? It's somewhere on here. It's right here. Goals.
Asparagus.
Asparagus.
To time the asparagus. Timing.
I got a
Timing.
spot for you guys.
I know where they are. I actually know where some are, not too far from here, in some ditches, but I'll go there to look for them, and they'll be like just coming out of the ground, and then I'll go like do something for a week and come back, and they'll be frowned out, and I'm like,
You got almost.
it's a timing issue, and I don't know.
Yeah, because they'll get woody real quick.
Ugh.
Yeah, they'll be way too big.
Yeah. Constantly dropping pins on seeded
Asparagus.
out asparagus.
Yeah, they're everywhere around town, aren't they?
That's a good thing. Like for people who have never foraged for asparagus, now in the wintertime or even late summer is a great time to see them. They look like, I don't know, ferns almost, like big ferns, trees.
They're pretty identifiable.
Yeah, they can get huge.
They're yellow now.
Yeah, yellow now. But like, people who don't forage, or if you tell them that's an asparagus, they're like, what? That's not an asparagus. But yeah, no. If you let your garden asparagus grow, it'll turn into almost like a little shrub,
Mhm.
a little tree.
We had asparagus as a child growing up in Connecticut in the garden, and they were good. But I'll tell you, if you've never had a wild asparagus, they're beyond good.
Super good.
They're amazing.
The only gripe I have with them is that they're mostly in ditches, on the sides of roads, which here, I feel like there's less people here who don't use a bunch of salt in the winter,
Sure.
If it's like on the top end of the, how like most ditches, like I wouldn't probably get an asparagus that's growing in the middle, but if it's like kind of higher on top where that runoff isn't collecting,
Mm-hmm.
but you can find them in the middle of along trails, like
Yeah,
forest
we've got a couple
trails.
trail spots.
That's where I really like to get my asparagus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, timing is tough. You almost gotta like check them every day. When Wisconsin, during the asparagus season, we would like go like every 2 days, take some drives, and just look for them. They're tasty.
They are.
They
Yeah,
are.
they're one
And
of the first ones I ever foraged.
Yeah,
When we were kids, my mom would take us out to the ditches and we'd sit and pick asparagus.
yeah. Lindy showed
I didn't realize I foraged.
the ditch
before.
that you showed
Yeah.
me by your old house.
Before it was
There's a
cool.
ton.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So asparagus for you, Spencer.
Yeah. Also, to add to that, just going to different states and trying my knowledge in a different atmosphere. I go to Washington pretty frequently.
Yeah.
And I know they had just a banner year and are still having a
The
banner year.
Matsutakis are still going off, I hear.
The Matsutakis. That's
Wow.
exactly where I was going with that. I think we're sharing half a brain.
Yeah.
Asparagus, Matsutake.
Vinegar.
That's what's on our minds.
Yeah,
Vinegar.
matsutake is the mushroom for me that I'm trying to find more next
I
year.
know we have them, but it would be nice to just go find oodles of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oodles is right. No, I'd like to do that too, and I have a buddy actually in Washington who he has a crazy story around it, and I want him to come on and tell it, so I'm not going to ruin it. But
Road trip.
yeah, he had a crazy story where we'll keep that for the podcast.
YOP on the road in
Yeah.
Washington.
I love it.
Now, one that's on my list, wild rice.
Mm-hmm.
I have gotten a tip of wild rice in a bordering state
Yeah.
to Montana. That isn't a super far drive. So if anyone's interested, I might take a road trip next year and see if I can get into it.
I have harvested a lot of wild rice
Really?
mistakenly.
Oh, really?
When I lived on the East Coast, I would take a big duck hunter, always have been, but I'd take my little John boat up to Maine, and southeastern Maine, there's a bay called the Merry Meeting Bay, some of the biggest tidal flats, and amazing duck hunting in the Atlantic Flyway. And I pushed my boat every day back up into these reeds, not knowing it was rice. I got home about 2 weeks later. I'm hunting back home, and my bilge pumps are all plugged because the rice
on
had
your
gotten
boat?
in there and expanded and clogged. Cost me a lot. It cost me like $500 for a new bilge pump and all that.
What?
But it was wild rice, so I shouldn't say I harvested. I didn't harvest and eat it.
Yeah.
I found out later that it was wild rice.
Yeah.
I would love to get into that.
Oh, me
Mhm.
too.
That would be
It's
cool.
so good.
And yeah, there's a state next to here, next to Montana, that supposedly has one stretch along some water that has it introduced because it's more of a like Wisconsin, Maine, Great Lakes
Yep.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
Minnesota's got a bunch of
yeah, we had, when we talked to Randy Newberg in the podcast, he was bringing that up, that when he was growing up, that was like the thing. Everyone
Yeah.
went wild, and his family member still does it, like has a stand selling wild rice and all that. Be so cool. Like
That's
I'm not a big grain eater anymore, but that's one I could really get
Mhm.
down with.
Yeah.
And the flavor's
It's
so
good.
different.
It's good for you too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the road trip thing, like I really want to do that more, because persimmons, pawpaw, like we have all this cool wild fruit in the US
Mhm.
that's like tropical type stuff. Like pawpaw looks to me like something you'd find in Ecuador, like,
Sure.
but it grows here in the US. So I want to do more road trips like that. Maybe not next year.
well, it's hard to leave here when you know something's happening.
Yeah.
It is.
You know,
It
you're
is.
like, I can't. I find myself planning stuff around. Like I'm like, well, I can't go there in May because I'm gonna be picking morels. So sorry, I'm not gonna be there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. That's
But-
true.
just
But
gotta
it's probably
buck
worth
up
it.
and just do it one of these years.
It's worth doing a little road trip, I think. The other one that I kind of now got a little sample of is ground cherries. Have you guys picked ground cherries?
Oh, they're so
Never heard of 'em.
good.
Oh my God.
Eastern Montana, is that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We just found some in Eastern Montana. So I'd been eyeing them in the summer there. I'm like, I think these are the ground cherries I keep seeing in my books. Took a picture of it with my plant ID app, and it was like highly toxic to humans. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got to do more research, like blah, blah, blah. Went back, and this is, I guess, a story for a beginner forager, something you should not do. But we went back this last weekend, and I'm like, I got to go take pictures of these. I got to check them out. Like, hopefully they're still there. And they were there, and now they were ripe and nice, bright orange. And I had Lindy's brother with me, and
Did you guinea pig them?
no, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure these are the ground cherries. Like, I need to
Accidental.
do more research. I'm not going to eat these yet. And the next thing I know, he already popped one in his mouth. And I'm like, no, Garrett, you're ballsy. Like, don't do that. And so he's like, oh, I'll spit it out again. He started chewing. He's like, that's the flavor is so good. So I'm like, okay, fuck. So I had to. So I'm like, okay, just the one forager rule is right. Always only eat something once you're 100% sure. And I wasn't, but I'm like, another good line of defense for a forager is your taste, right? Like most, your nose and your mouth, like the flavor. Often, if something's very bitter, that means the plant doesn't want to get eaten for the most. Like it's some sort of chemical you probably don't want to ingest too much of. This was like
Oh, so sweet.
delicious,
Mm.
like
Wow.
so
Amazing.
good. So I didn't actually like swallow the cherries, but we like chewed in a bunch. And here, let me just find I took some pictures, but they're on my phone now. But man, so they're actually related to the tomatillo, I think they're called. So they look like they come in this papery sheath, like a little
Yeah.
hut, like that, like a husk,
That's interesting.
and you peel them back, and they kind of look like a little orange tomato, like golden cherry tomato,
Yeah.
with a bunch of seeds in them, and they're super, super sweet.
They
Did
were.
you get a pretty good yield?
Not there. We're just kind of sampling.
Huh.
Mhm.
But and I have read now since then. This week I kind of dove into them in different books, and I guess they you can find like whole fields of them, like
Mhm.
hundreds.
Hmm.
But for the most part, most things I was reading, at least in blogs and stuff, people are saying they're seeing less and less of them. There are native species, and for the most part, they can be bitter. So you only want to eat them when they're ripe. Otherwise, they are toxic. And every other part of the plant is really, like, I'm pretty sure deadly to humans. So don't eat it when they're green. Get them when they're nice and orange. And then if they're still bitter, then supposedly you're supposed to cook them. And that should take care of the bitterness. But if they're still bitter after you cook them, then you don't want to eat them.
Don't.
That means
eat.
they still have the compounds that aren't the best for you. But if they're nice and sweet, you're good to go. And man, I think it was Forager Chef Alan Burgo. He had a ground cherry pie.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like next Thanksgiving.
Oh my god.
forget about the pumpkin pie. Let's make some ground
Seriously.
cherries.
So overrated anyhow.
These are like up on the same level as grouse whortleberries, only bigger.
Oh wow.
Grouse
Which is
whortleberries,
like-
have an awesome flavor.
Yeah.
But these are like they taste different.
They're totally different, but like
You
that
like bite
flavor
into them
profile.
and it feels like a grape.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the berries this year probably all did. I mean, I can't, like you were saying before. I mean, I've never seen grouse whortleberries like I've seen this year.
Oh, it was crazy.
It was
We-
nuts.
I've never picked. I always miss them because I think the birds and the chipmunks eat them first. But I found a pretty good load of black currants this year, which made a lot of. That's like great for doing my catering and little glazes, and it's got amazing flavor. But
does.
black currants were really good this year.
All berries were like.
Yeah.
We had some serviceberry bushes we found. I mean, we took a bunch of video on our YouTube channel. There's a bunch of serviceberry video, chokecherry, grouse whortleberry now, and it was just a great year. Like I had to do as many berry videos as I could because they were just booming.
Next year, there's not going to be any probably. Right?
We'll see.
Yeah.
But that's
hot tip.
yeah.
If I'm finding whortleberries, mushrooms aren't far.
Oh,
Really?
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
interesting.
I would say,
I've
like-
never made that correlation.
Yeah. To my knowledge.
Yeah. Well, I
That-
mean that those are the little things
On a
you
north
gotta
slope,
notice.
I would say like whortleberries, and you're like northwest slope, whortleberries, you're going to be, maybe it's just that you're at this right elevation at the right time of year. And in the south slopes, it's like I find them on Kinnickinnick.
Mm.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe there's something there. Maybe maybe
Interesting.
not.
Well, those are the little things I was going to say, like that, you start to notice the little associations. And I think it probably varies from spot to spot. And
For sure, yeah.
yeah, but that's like the cool stuff. That's why I need a foraging journal, right? You can write all that stuff down.
Mm-hmm.
I started that to actually do it again this year. I used to do it. And then, this year I started it up again. Next year I want to go like be real strict with it.
Yeah. It's fun to like sit down like right next to a fruiting, right? Open it up and I'll sit and draw like all the flowers that I see around it. Like
that's
I'll,
cool.
draw a glacier lily or a half bloomed out lupin, or
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, this is what it looked like.
Yeah.
It's fun to just like, I used to be the forager who's like, there they are, like just running around and gather as fast as I can, Now it's fun to just like sit there and observe,
Yeah.
why something's doing what it's doing.
Yeah. That's like when you get into the
Because
prestige of foraging, the next level. Like, yeah, totally. So Spencer, I know you also do a lot of trapping.
Mm.
Do you what do you usually trap? And then like, are you eating any of these animals? And if not, why not?
Yeah, I mostly trap water critters because I'm better at it than trapping martins and weasels. I don't care to trap coyotes or foxes unless they're a problem to somebody, but it's not something I go out of my way to do. But yeah, mostly like beavers and muskrats make. I just think it's really fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and beaver's great.
For the meat.
Yeah, the meat's really
You
awesome.
gotta bring me some of that fat this year, or I'll come help you flesh.
Well,
it.
we had a deal, right? You were going to come
Yeah,
to my
yeah.
house and flesh.
I
If
will
you
flesh
flesh
it.
the beaver, I'll give you as much fat as you
I
want.
want to render. I was reading that the beaver fat is really good rendered.
Yeah, we ate quite a few beaver tails
Really?
last winter, and
Do you gotta really remove the hair, right? You gotta make it right.
yeah, and we kind of just fried them like chicharrones.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had beaver chicharrones,
Like fried in tallow, hopefully.
pretty much just fried, and RFK wouldn't be stoked, but
Yeah.
we just fried them, and it was just to kind of say you did. Haven't tried muskrat yet. Watched Randy eat them on YouTube, and he wasn't that jacked on it, so I was like,
You're like, yeah, maybe.
yeah. But beaver's good. Beaver's great.
Have you ever made beaver?
I've had beaver. I've never
Really?
made it. I've eaten it before.
You like it?
No,
You didn't like it?
no, I didn't like it. And I've never had the chicharrone's tail, but I've had the tail braised before, and it just things that come out of the water, whether it's a lizard, an alligator, a turtle, or a beaver, just
Not your cup of
it's
tea.
Not for me.
It's a slow cook type of program. I
It is.
feel just
It is.
cook the crap out of it, but it keeps me moving all winter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We trapped, I think, 6 or 7 weeks.
Now, do you have to trap beaver on private land?
No, you can acquire a permit to trap state land and all federal land is fair game, following, certain regulations to that particular piece. But we usually apply for, 4 to 5 pieces of state land around here every year and trap the ones that have the freshest beaver sign, and then start migrating to our private land access.
Yeah.
And getting rid of problem beavers, which is just fun for us. We love it. But we had a really good season last year, and gonna up our amount of sets this year. And my trapping partner, he got a permit to trap down near West Yellowstone on I forget the name of the creek, but he's allowed 2 otter and 5 beaver, and then he gets kicked off the piece, right? So then I don't know if the letting somebody else come after him or if he's the only one allowed in there, but when you get a piece of state land, a section, you're the only person allowed to trap it.
Okay.
So the only thing you have to deal with is fishermen,
regulated.
Messing with your stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's cool.
it's great. You should come with me this winter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
It's a blast.
Like I said, I'd love to try that fat. What else do you do with the animals? What are you doing with them?
Oh, you want to know, huh?
Yeah.
I brought some crafts.
Oh, yeah?
Keep me toasty, yeah.
Let's see it. What you got?
This is a muskrat beaver muff that I made.
Look at that.
Oh,
Jeff
wow.
Will. Isn't that sick?
I'm going to be the
I already got to see it once.
warmest guy on the ice this year.
Yeah,
So
Well,
it's-
that's what it's for. It's to put your hands in.
Yeah, goes around your waist.
Oh,
So it's beaver on the inside and 4 muskrats to line the. It's reversible, so whatever. Fancy.
super cool.
Whichever fashion
So
trend
for
you
people
want to.
listening right now,
Yeah.
made
it's
another one of these that can be little leggings too.
cute, right?
Gators.
My dad says that I
The
can go to
fashion socks.
Aspen and act like I'm somebody for a week.
Yeah, you could.
You totally can.
just
Just
show
wear
up
them on
like
your
a-
arms.
Yeah.
No shirt.
Oh my
You got to
God.
dress up like Dumb and Dumber with like a blue suit. Have these on. Go
Oh, that'd
walk
be-
around.
For
Give
people listening.
people a bunch of IOUs.
Who sewed those? Did you sew
Yeah,
that?
he
I
sewed
did,
that
yeah. I
all
worked on
himself.
this. I made this last night.
Wow, I have a stack of fur in my closet. I might bring for you to make something out of.
Spencer's like, please, God, no. I've been hand sewing this for weeks.
Yeah, it is very tedious, but
I bet. Oh, I see what you did.
So Spencer pulled out a muff for people listening. If you don't know what that is, it's like almost like
so there's
what
a
you call
liner
it.
that'll.
It's like an arm sleeve.
It's a double
fur.
hand glove.
Yeah, that you just put you wear around your neck and you
Okay.
put your hands in,
Still need to sew the two together.
and super cool. And then he's also making
Wow.
some
That's
hats.
beaver.
That's beaver. That was a 60-pound beaver that I caught last spring. It's a big one.
It feels so warm.
You use
and
the
cozy.
tannery in Idaho. Isn't that the only one left in the world?
Iowa.
Iowa?
Yeah, Sleepy Creek.
Oh, I always sent my stuff to this place in Idaho.
Yep, Iowa, Sleepy Creek.
Oh, that's the liner.
Yep.
Oh.
Do you have to have a specific tannery to do beaver muskrat hides, or can anybody?
I'm not sure. I bet it's kind of specific, I would imagine.
Because I know of some sheep tanners. That
Yeah,
I
we
think
don't
these
like
guys
to do
probably
it, but-
specialize in looking at
yeah,
the menu of what they charge. It's like coyote, badger, otter, beaver.
right.
I imagine that's probably what they specialize in.
Mm-hmm. I know a guy who does coyotes and foxes and stuff too, but no one who does beavers up here.
Yeah, we got to get Jacob on here. He's doing my buddy Jacob. He
probably do.
he tans all his deer hides and bison and elk, and he made a hat, like a baseball cap, a hoodie, pants,
Shoes,
shoes. That's
Wow.
all he wears.
backpack.
Every day he wears just his buckskin stuff. Yeah, he's hardcore like that.
Yeah.
Awesome dude. And yeah, cool stuff. Thanks for bringing that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I thought you of all people would enjoy it.
Yeah,
Super
I think
cool.
I love that stuff. And hopefully you get a bunch this year and I can come flush some hides for fat.
Yeah, I'm into this trade-off. Anybody who's fleshed a beaver knows that this is a great
I don't know
trade.
what I'm getting myself into.
It's a lot of work, man.
Well, we'll do an evening or something,
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like,
One
I'll
week.
be doing it every other day.
1 week
so,
project.
Yep.
Cool. Well, since we kind of pivoted a bit into animals here, Chef Will, I know you got a big bull, elk bull this year.
I did. Yeah, actually, there was a bigger one, but I was like in my head the whole time, like I want some meat. I was grateful to be invited to hunt a private ranch that 1 or 2 people might hunt a year. And it was kind of like hunting what you would call a zoo, because there were so many elk everywhere. And I went in with the idea of like, I'm going to go shoot a raghorn, because that's, I think, the best eating elk is, a 2.5-year-old bull. But I did end up shooting a really nice bull. I was really proud of myself too, because it was the longest shot I've ever taken. I don't shoot long distances, but it was 360 yards, and that's a pretty good poke for me.
Yeah.
Now I'm sure there are listeners out there that are like giggling, saying,
That's a poke for me too.
I shoot them at 800 yards, Well, I don't. I owe that to the wildlife not to do that stuff, but I respect people that know how to do that. And but yeah, so I wanted to talk about not so much the hunt, because it was a pretty quick hunt. But I've been playing around for a couple years now with aging. Whether it's low fat content meats, ungulates, elk, antelope, deer, and I think I've really come across something that combines dry and wet aging. Once again, I do have a walk-in cooler that I can set moisture content at, and I can keep it at a really nice temperature. So I'm kind of spoiled in that way to have that. But this year, I think I really nailed it. With 2 weeks of a dry age, quarter dry age. This is not a whole animal, but quarter dry age, and that's just on the front, the shoulders, and the hindquarters. And my tenderloins, I vacuum sealed right away, and left them in larger. I think I cut each tenderloin into 4 pieces, so they're pretty big hunks. Vacuum sealed them. About 6,000 pounds per square inch, really hardcore, and let them sit. I let them go for 3.5 weeks. I opened a bag, I cut a steak. It wasn't where I wanted it, so I let it go another 2.5 weeks.
So you just re-vacuum sealed it?
Re-vacuum sealed. I use a different vacuum. So there's 2 types of vacuum sealers. You have a chamber sealer, which the whole bag goes into a chamber and the whole environment is pressured, versus a channel sealer, where you have a channel that gets clogged with blood and all that. That's really not very useful for anything wet. But anyhow, the tenderloins I then took out and then cut, staked. And then I came across something else. Just this year's the first time I've done it, and I've already opened a bag and seen the results. But I vacuum seal. But before I do that, I wrap the meat in peach paper. So peach paper is basically your butcher paper without the wax.
Okay.
Without the treatment on it. It's sometimes if you go to a barbecue restaurant.
So it's just paper, no chemicals. Nothing.
There is. I'm sure there's just chemicals in all paper. I'm pretty sure. But I wrap it in that. It's almost like a craft paper.
Okay.
But I wrap my steaks or my roasts in that, and then vacuum seal it, so I get kind of a double layer. But back to like the shoulders and stuff, I let those go for 2.5 weeks, and then did the same process again. I'm not a really big person in cutting meat into steaks. I think decreasing the surface area of your meats increases dryness when you go to cook it, freezer burn, versus taking that whole sirloin cap and freezing it whole, and then waiting till, you can thaw that out and you don't have to eat it the next day, especially if you have a vacuum sealer at home. Stake out what you want, re-vacuum seal it, put it in the fridge for another week or so. You think about the steak you get at the grocery store. That wasn't put on the shelf. It wasn't slaughtered a couple weeks ago.
It's probably frozen and thawed a few times.
Yeah. I know according to the first housewife's ever cookbook that was made, the test to see if meat was fresh was you poke your finger into it, and if it bounces back, it's fresh. If it stays indented, it's not.
That's a good one. But basically, I take my quarters, I debone them, then I re-vacuum seal them, and I wet age them. And there's no wetness to it until So I'll take a piece of sirloin off the hind quarter, or a flat iron steak, or a tri-tip. I'll vacuum seal it whole, and I'll put it back in the walk-in for, after about 2 or 3 days, you start to see the blood come out of the meat.
You're putting it in a walk-in fridge?
Cooler. In the cooler.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So once you see that blood start coming, keep letting it come. Check your seals on your bags. You want no oxygen in there.
How do you check them? What do you look for?
Well, you just look to see if where your seal is, to make sure it's nice and flat. And that's basically, sometimes your seal will crinkle or something when you go in, and over time it'll start to open a little bit, and then you run to oxidization and so forth. But if when you've gone too far is when you start to see air, like not from air getting in there, but you start to see bubbles in the blood. That's a pretty good sign that you're ready to freeze. Some people might not enjoy that flavor as much, but I love it. It's instead of gamey, it's more rich. And I've made the mistake 2 years ago. I didn't drain the blood. So what I'll do is I'll take a bunch of kitchen rags, lay them all out, take the meat out, dry everything off good, then re-vacuum seal it. Then wrap it in peach paper, re-vacuum seal it, and then freeze it.
And why, before you get all that blood off, you dry it?
Yeah, I've done it before, where I haven't taken the blood out, with the idea of, have you ever heard like walleye fishermen, like they freeze their fish in a milk carton full of water or milk. Yeah. Kind of that idea. It's like encapsulated by the blood. But I also found that I didn't care for the flavor. It was almost too irony, not livery, but irony. But I've had this year, I think my elk, and I haven't eaten a bunch of it because I'm still eating last year's, but I think that second wrap is really going to make a big difference too, because there's still, this really thin, I use 4mm vac bags, but you still don't have, another layer. And I don't silver skin my steaks. I leave all that on. I like to take fat and the tallow off, what's that membrane called, that slimy stuff? I'm just blanking a name. I like to pull a lot of that off. I think that gives a foul taste. But silver skin, I see all these guys that go have their deer butchered, and yeah, they all look great when they thaw them out. But you look at them closely on the edges where the silver skin was, and it's that oxidized gray color.
Yeah.
If you leave that silver skin on, that silver skin's going to get that. And silver skin doesn't have a flavor.
Yeah, it's like your extra layer of protection.
Yeah.
Nature's saran wrap.
It is
Exactly.
nature. I love that. That's my new thing. Nature's saran wrap. But yeah, the wet age, more than anything, I'll argue that it's more tenderization process. Especially with a bull like I killed, like it's, and I've killed bigger bulls and eaten that. And it's like, I've killed bulls where I have, almost 200, 300 pounds of meat in the freezer, and I don't like, I give it away because I don't like it.
You told me that right after you shot your bull, a raghorn stepped out, and you're like,
yeah,
why didn't I shoot? Why didn't I wait?
That's the one I wanted.
That's funny. They do taste way better than those old crusty bulls.
They do. They really do.
So you mentioned 2.5 weeks and then 3 weeks. So you said
2.5 weeks on the hook, just on the bone.
Okay, so you're actually taking your full on hind quarter and shoulder, putting it on a hook and hanging it in the cooler. What temperature is that cooler at?
No more than 35 degrees.
35 Fahrenheit.
Average about 33. And about 80% relative humidity.
Okay.
And I have a humidifier in there, which I spent a little extra on, but I turned it down because I have lots of other stuff in there. Like, for example, I store a lot of my vinegars in there that are already made because it kind of puts the brake on everything. I notice a lot of sweat all over the outside of my jars and sweat everywhere. So I'm like, so I just took some plastic and put around the quarters just to encapsulate. I don't like dry aging without humidity because you've already skinned your deer elk once, and if you dry age and don't have, like, for example, you hang it in a barn that's great. Your temperatures are in the 30s at night, and the meat doesn't change temperature during the day because it's cold. You're still gonna decrease your yield and increase your waste.
Because you got to cut that out.
Because you got to cut that stuff off.
Yeah.
I mean, you can leave it on and eat it, but it's like, cardboard. And it won't cook right. A lot of people, I made a lot of dog food this year because I had, a lot of, I got the whole animal out. So I was taking stuff that I don't really care to eat, rib meat and like.
You weren't taking quarters out. I saw you had like a tractor pull out the whole elk.
Yeah, my girlfriend's dad had the tractor rigged and we had this thing hanging from the tractor. The 355-yard shot was a neck shot. I dropped it in his track. So I had I've never gotten this much utilization off an animal I've killed.
That's awesome.
Just a hole in and out of its lower neck, right by the jugular. It bled out. But the utilization, just tons of meat. I made over 80 pounds of dog food. I'm not a big fan of a lot of the neck meat. It's a little strong for me. A lot of the exterior stomach and rib lining and muscle meat around the back and stuff.
I like to grind all that usually.
Yeah.
So wet aging comes after the dry age.
Sure.
So 2.5 weeks in that cooler, and then you start to debone it.
And did you say you had a chamber sealer for that, or you're using
I use a chamber sealer. It's a lot cleaner. And on the sealer, particular one that I use, I can adjust the poundage as much. I can go up to 6,000 pounds per square inch, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's cool. And then all that, when it gets to that wet aging stage, that's just all that blood. Like you said,
after about a week,
myoglobin.
you'll see. So like when I opened those bags that had maybe 3 pieces of tenderloin in each bag, probably about a 5-pound bag of tenderloin. There's easily a cup and a half of blood in there.
So if someone wanted to wet age at home, they don't have all your fancy equipment.
I noticed. I feel that a lot of people have a garage refrigerator.
Yeah.
A garage refrigerator is great because you keep your waters, your drinks in there, your beers, your sodas, whatever, and it doesn't get open breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's not kids constantly opening it, so it stays that temperature better. So I think a garage fridge is vital for that type of thing.
And then how would you, if you have a normal like $100
fridge in your house?
No, like $100 vacuum sealer. That's not a chamber.
Save your money. Save your money. Get a chamber. Honestly, 5 years ago, a decent chamber sealer was $2,000 to $3,000. Now you can get a great chamber sealer for like $800. I don't think I'd take the COD. I'd go with VacMaster. I would save a little more money up and go with a VacMaster product. That's what I run. They're really good, and they're industrial. They're easy to get parts for. They're easy to work on. But chamber sealer is definitely the way to go.
Okay. All right. We'll have to get one.
So like, this hasn't happened to me often. I'm a good person, but I have pulled out meat in a vac bag before and left it in the fridge on a plate and forgot about it. When I come back and look at it, like you're talking about, there's blood in that vac bag in the meat, like more than when you pulled it out. That's the
normal
process?
So exactly. So that basically, so what you did is you process your deer, you vacuum seal it and pop it in the freezer. So then you took it out and put it on a plate. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So basically it's starting to wet age. It's not starting to wet age, but it's thawing, and all that blood,
the myoglobin.
Myoglobin is coming out now. I try to get, and I'm still gonna like thaw those steaks, and I'm still gonna have that in there, just not as much of it. And that actually, that blood in there is actually speeding up that basically controlled rot without oxygen. You're tenderizing your meat.
Yeah.
Building a little bit of flavor while you're doing it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So if you're taking, like he just explained, you take out a piece of meat from the freezer of an animal you butchered, it was clean. You froze it, pretty soon after butchering. How long are you keeping it in the fridge before you say, like, let's say you forget it? When are you like, are you
referring to something that I've already aged, or are you referring to something that you've just killed?
Just the normal person who's
a couple weeks.
Age, really?
I think a couple weeks. Look, if it's a sealed bag, make sure it's sealed.
Yeah.
But like I said, if you look at that blood and you don't see any bubbles in it, any type of air, and that's not air getting in from the outside. That's basically that blood starting to break down on its own. You'll see, almost like if you pour a cup of tea, you have the bubbles on top. It's kind of like that type of airy bubbles. Bubbles is a red flag. It's time to eat it. And then smell, you can always smell meat that's gone bad. It's a pretty distinct rotten. I mean, it's just rotten. So it kind of smells like rotten mushrooms, Morels are notorious for that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. I've definitely
but
if I've tossed meat before.
If you haven't done a process of the aging and everything, you could add that on, be like, oh, well, I've already aged it for like a month. Oh boy, I better eat it right away. But I mean, back to the grocery store deal, your meat counter. I mean, that T-bone steak you're buying at the grocery store, that was probably slaughtered easily a month ago and hadn't been frozen.
Well, and the ground beef, they have to add.
That's different.
Yeah, you know how they have to add, I don't know, is it vitamin C? They add something to it to make it brighter.
I don't buy it.
Well, sometimes you'll see like ground meat that's on the outside, it's that perfect, like bright red. And you like in the inside, it's already like the brown, and you know they added stuff to it to make it look that way.
Yeah,
it's like
really,
the orange.
It should be the
cheddar.
other way around. The outside should be brown, and the inside
should
be pink.
Yeah,
that's right. 100%.
If you're a hunter,
Yeah,
that's true. It's like the cheddar. Like why do we need to color the cheddar? Like,
sure.
I never understood that.
There's no such thing as yellow milk.
Yeah, it's like why has that become a thing?
Yeah,
but super weird. Man, that is awesome. So. Aging meat, definitely something to explore more.
And it's not beef. Beef, you got all this layers of fat that you can cut off, and the dry aging and the increased tenderness and, as I say, cheesy flavor that dry aging does for beef. It's two different ball games, same concept, but completely different. And I think the main thing with dry aging of any wild game is you lose a lot of meat. You lose a lot of meat
because of that. Again, you gotta
that crust,
cut that crust off. Mm-hmm. I aged once, and then I was like, I don't want to waste all this.
Yeah,
like, why am I doing this? It wasn't. I didn't. Maybe I did it wrong, but I didn't see a huge difference in like flavor and. Yeah. I'd like to try some of your. Like once you've gone.
You just did. That was my cow.
That was it.
Last year, I did the same thing.
Yeah, that was great. That was super good. Talk about that real quick, because you just you just served us these awesome elk skewers that were super tender, and we all asked you if it was backstrap, but it wasn't.
Yeah, that's funny. So it's sirloin top round. It's basically a muscle on the outside of, I guess what would be your outer thigh, if I was saying like from a human perspective. But once again, frozen whole, no silver skin taken off.
No silver skin taken off.
Oh, when I take the silver skin off after I thaw it.
Okay. I was gonna say, how'd you get it so
slice
tender?
the steaks off and all that. But yeah, I did simple. I did some garlic, some ginger, some quality organic soy sauce, Japanese soy sauce, and toasted Szechuan peppercorns, which is a peppercorn from the prickly ash tree, a very almost numbing effect on the palate, really cool, crunchy texture. And then some brown rice wine.
Awesome.
And a little bit of honey.
That sounds,
and
it was so good.
A dab of hoisin sauce just to give that kind of sweetness. Marinated it for about an hour and a half. I really like to pat the marinade off before I grill it. And then just stuck it on a stick and grilled it. And
quick flash sear.
Yeah.
It was killer.
It was so killer. But so you mentioned the top sirloin. So if someone's butchering their own deer or elk, everyone knows that football roast.
Yep.
And it's the piece that's attached to the outside
piece.
Of
so
that.
Basically, if you put it on your cutting board with the bone side facing you, it's going to be that first steak. And I shouldn't call it a steak. It's more of a roast in size that comes off the top of it. So the opposite side that's facing you. It almost looks like a shoe that got run over by a truck, kind of like that
That is
shape.
so appetizing.
It's got a real thin end, and then it's got a real thick end, and you just cut it across the grain. It is next to flat iron. I think tenderloin being the most tender. I think after that is flat iron. Then that sirloin cap, and then tenderloin. I mean, it all depends. Everybody thinks everything's all great about back straps. I mean, yeah, they're great, but there's other cuts in the deer. The flat iron, or elk, it's got great flavor. It's super tender. That's that steak
meat
up on the shoulder,
Yeah.
in the clavicle.
Just got to make sure you take that middle silver skin out.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
It's hard to do. I've yet to perfect that
I'll give you.
skin in a long
tell
day
you what to
without.
do.
Yeah.
I cut with an elk. I cut mine in 3 pieces, and then I vacuum seal it and done with it. And then when I take it out, I deal with it after it's thawed. It's much easier to take out.
Interesting.
Much easier.
Okay. Noted.
And some people even take it out when they carve it.
Right.
Have you done it yet?
I just
flat
freeze
iron?
the whole muscle as well.
Yeah.
And on a deer, it's like perfect for the crock pot.
Yeah.
Oh,
You got feeds 2 people and you have leftovers the
Yeah.
next day.
Yeah.
But-
Oh.
I usually don't even take it out.
Oh.
I just pick it out after I cook it.
Oh, okay.
So we just, I shouldn't say we, Lindy's dad, Wayne.
My
Shout out
father.
Wayne. Shout out Wayne. Just made a whole antelope shoulder
That's pretty
after
great.
Thanksgiving on the smoker.
Yum.
And we did a whole white-tailed deer shoulder last year. This year antelope, and it was incredible.
Mhm.
Oh man, sorry. I got to get this recipe out quick because I took a picture.
Like a slow cook.
Yeah, well, so he does it first, smokes it, and then he puts it in like an aluminum pan with veggies and beer, and on the Traeger. And so I'll probably post this recipe on the website at some point. But a bunch of different like veggies and seasonings. But
And
basically,
he kind of goes off script.
what he
with his,
does,
but-
roughly what he does is the recipe here says begin by coating the entire shoulder with a seasoning rub. Reserve 2 teaspoons of the rub for later. Pack the rest onto the shoulder. Set your Traeger grill to 225. Place the shoulder directly on the grill rack and smoke for about 3 hours to infuse that outside of the shoulder with that smoke. And after smoking the shoulder for a few hours, add it to the pan with the peppers and onions. Then transfer the shoulder to a large disposable aluminum pan. Add the onions, peppers, chipotles, with the sauce, garlic, and beer. And he says he always adds a little bit more beer and veggies. And then sprinkle the reserved rub over the vegetables. Seal the pan tightly with foil and return to the grill. Raise the temperature to 300 and cook for an additional 3 to 4 hours. He says he usually does a little bit more in the cooking too. Until the meat is shreddable and falls easily from the bone. And
Sounds like pulled pork barbecue to me.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
seriously.
like, it's the best way. It really is the best way to use those shoulders because you're not wasting a thing. I mean,
Yeah,
he doesn't
you're
take
picking
the
the
fat
bone.
off. He doesn't take
yeah.
the skins off. He just cleans it, hair off, smokes
Done.
it, and you could get everything off.
Mhm.
You
It's
eat
Front
everything
quarters
but
are my
the bone.
least favorite to
Mm-hmm.
clean and
Yeah.
cure and
It's-
process.
It's
do
so
that.
nice too.
That'd be
You
nice.
save them.
They call that a blade roast in the biz.
Yep.
They're nice
Throwing
because you
out the
save
big
them for
words.
tons
Yeah.
of people
Yeah.
coming over, and you
Love
can
it.
feed like 7 people from one shoulder,
Yeah.
which is
Steak.
perfect.
Blade steak.
It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
All right, y'all. I think that we'll call it good for. I don't want to keep you guys too long today. It's already 8 p.m. I feel like you guys need to go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Or you I bet you're going to do some more work shift, Will.
No, my clock normally turns off my distraction, or I shouldn't really distraction. My focus ability starts to wean at about 4:35 every day.
Yep.
And I've been up since 6, building menus for all the skier clowns coming in here in another couple weeks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Man. One day I remember you like asked me to help you in one of these dinners once, and then I couldn't. And then he's like, here's this DJ that's playing at this private party.
Oh,
And
Yoko.
no, it was Boris Brejcha.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
one of my favorite German DJs.
That was
Just
a crazy party,
World
too.
famous. I'm like, what? He's like there right
wild.
now. I'm like, can I come, sous chef?
Yeah, he was with what's the country guy's name?
You said it was some hedge fund manager, I think.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there. It was
Probably
pretty.
not name any names.
It was a wild party. Yeah, I've seen it all up there.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Spencer, anything else you wanted to mention that we didn't cover, or we can keep it for another episode?
We'll come again.
We'll come again. I
Yeah.
like that.
Well, hopefully
Wow.
we'll have some new stories and
I'd love
newfound
that.
knowledge next time.
We'll love to have you back.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Well, thanks again.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was really enjoyable.
totally. Well, thank you guys for coming. As always, thanks, Chef Will, for bringing the foods.
You
I
bet.
hope you were able to stomach the mead and liked it. Next time I'll bring out my other wine if I still have some left. We said we might bring it to the holiday party.
I
But,
think we've got 2 bottles up there, though, so we should
all
be
right,
fine.
we'll keep one. And I mean, I'm gonna make some choke cherry wine over the winter here. So if you want to come, Spencer, and
BIC,
Do
bring
that.
your own.
Yeah.
BYOC, bring your own choke cherries.
yeah, I like that. I like that.
That's
Man,
great.
so many T-shirt ideas by now.
Hmm.
I want to make a T-shirt that's what was it? Foraged food energy.
Oh, I love it.
I
I like that.
I want that.
I like
Yeah, I'm gonna make that soon before someone else does. My idea.
You better
Yeah,
make
but
it
you have to
quick
stop
before this
saying
podcast.
it on the
I know.
podcast.
I know. I gotta stop saying it.
Somebody's gonna be like, "That's a great idea."
I just gotta invest and make a bunch of merch here
Mhm.
soon. Why not? Cool. All right, guys.
Thanks, Poldi.
Thanks for
Awesome.
coming.
Thanks.
Bye
Thanks,
bye.
guys.